now listening to Your Ideal Day with Adam Parker. Each week, we'll bring you an inspiring person or uplifting message on how to unlock your full potential. For more information, please visit youridealday.com. Your ideal, it's what you make it.
Imagine an invisible force surrounding you every day, emitting from your phone, Wi-Fi router, and even your household appliances. This force, known as electromagnetic fields or EMFs, is so pervasive it's become an inescapable part of modern life. But what if this unseen energy is silently influencing your health in ways you never suspected? In our hyper-connected world, we're constantly bombarded by EMFs from countless sources. Whilst technology has undoubtedly enhanced our lives, it's also introduced a new kind of pollution, electromagnetic pollution. Emerging research suggests that prolonged exposure to certain EMFs may be linked to health concerns such as sleep disturbances, headaches, and even more severe conditions. Yet, this issue remains largely overlooked, leaving many unaware of the potential risks lurking in their homes, in their pockets, and even on their own wrists. Protecting yourself from EMF exposure isn't just about abandoning technology or moving off the grid. It's about understanding the sources of EMFs and implementing practical solutions to mitigate their impact. Because trust me, this is something that no one can avoid. And here's the deal. By taking proactive steps, you can harmonize your environment and reduce potential health risks and enhance your overall well-being. So with that, let's get to our special guest and topic of the day. Today, we're joined by Dan Stachofsky, the founder of Essential Energy Solutions and a leading expert in EMF mitigation. Combining his background in business analytics with a passion for holistic health, Dan has dedicated himself to educating others about the unseen effects of EMFs and providing innovative solutions to create safer living spaces. So this episode, in my opinion, was a game changer. And throughout it, Dan really jumps into the science behind EMFs to really demystify what it's all about. Because here's the deal, we can't see it, we can't smell it, we can't taste it, and we can't touch it. So sometimes it doesn't feel real. And Dan does a really good job today in breaking it down and making it visceral and something that actually we need to take seriously. So whether you're tech savvy or just beginning to explore this topic, you'll gain valuable knowledge to make an informed decision about your environment. Here's also a startling fact. The World Health Organization has classified certain EMFs as possibly carcinogenic to humans. If this surprises you, it's definitely time to delve deeper. Share this episode with friends and family to spread the awareness about EMF exposure. And please don't forget to follow the podcast for more eye-opening discussions and to empower you to take control of your health. So without further ado, let's uncover the invisible influence of EMFs in this conversation with Dan Stachofsky. Dan Stachofsky, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. It's great to be here.
So Dan, I'm really excited about this conversation because it's by chance that we're on, because I'm really keen to talk to you about your line of products, and how I came to start using them and hear about them was a random conversation at a conference that I spoke at in Florida in October, the Western A Prize conference. And I was saying to you before we press record, I was chatting to this lady and she was just so energetic about what you guys do. And I was just in you're at a conference, you've the cash, you'll spend things, you're just like, yeah, why not? And just off her enthusiasm, I was like, right, okay, cool. Right, I'm going to buy this product. Let's do it. And, when I spoke to her, she's like, I never take it off. So I was like, okay, cool. So, right, cool, I'll do that. So literally, since I bought the product, I put it on end of October, and I've only taken it off when I shower, and then it goes straight back on. And I've noticed a very profound difference. So I'm really interested about jumping into the conversation around what you guys do at Essential Energies, and also understanding how it works, because I think you guys position it as an EMF protection product, but it's so much more. So really excited to have you on. Let's take it from the beginning. Like, how did this all begin? What inspired you to, dive in and understand this work and bring out these products?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. A lot of people we work with get pretty passionate about the product because they find something that works. It's more than just EMF protection, but it raises your energy. It makes you just get balanced and grounded. And when people are looking for health or looking to solve that mystery health issue, they know that being grounded and centered is really important. So it's exciting to be a part of that. That was a big part of my story too. I had to discover these products because of a daughter that I had that was critically ill, and she's passed on now to the other side. And she left us with a lot of knowledge and really taught us so much about how life works. And that's given us a big mission, a big purpose. Initially these products were really just for her and our immediate family or people that we knew. And then as we started to share with people the changes that were happening for her, it became apparent that this was a bigger issue. And it was something that everyone was going to be needing sooner than later. This was about 10 years, maybe 12 years ago. And I was in the software space, and we were building the cloud. We were building what has become the platform for all this AI and IoT. And I could see at my day job where all this technology was going and the changes that was going to make for all the wireless infrastructure that was needed to support this technology, the autonomous vehicles and what that's going to drive. And I'm learning about electromagnetic fields and the effect that has on life itself, on people, plants, and animals, and say, man, I don't think this is going the right direction. But then at home, I'm dealing with a critically ill child who is super sensitive to this in a way that we never really ever were taught could be the case. We don't really get taught about the environment and how the environment affects us. You maybe get taught, you need to eat well, move well, think well, those things, but you don't really realize that the energy that is in the environment can be beneficial or harmful for us at a very cellular, molecular level, that it can affect our immune systems and our nervous system and everything. And so as I started to learn that and kind of put the two together, I was really at a crossroads because, I'm trying to help someone who's being severely affected by this onslaught of technology in a way that we've never experienced before in humanity, as far as history goes back. There's a great history around the electrification of the world and what electricity has done as far as what it's brought into the world. 200 years ago, 3 or 4 diseases that were never really heard of before was diabetes, heart disease, metabolic issues, and cancer. They're very unknown, very rare, extremely rare issues. And today, our local hospital has just started a $50 million initiative to build a brand new heart institute. They wouldn't do that if there wasn't demand. It's an unfortunate situation we find ourselves with our environment. So as we discovered these products and started integrating them, we found an immediate change in Jane's life. She went from having to be in the ER 3 to 4 times a year because of her immune system, and she didn't produce the T cells that you need to fight off infections. And so we had to manage that with immune infusions, but even that wasn't enough for her. She still would need additional support. So as I started researching how the body works and how the immune system works with energy and inflammation versus stress and all these things, I realized if we could improve the quality of the communication within her body from cell to cell and raise the mitochondrial function, we could probably reduce the inflammation on her immune system and maybe give her immune system that boost of energy it needed to fight these infections itself. And that's what changed when we introduced these plates. I wear this around my neck, this little plate here, and it looks super simple. And what is that? These plates produce a structured form of natural light, whether that's the sunlight, UV, or infrared, that enables the body's vitality and energy to improve and to increase. When that increases, that means your mitochondria is working better. That's the powerhouse of the cell. You're producing better ATP, less free radicals. And from there, everything starts to work better, more naturally, more balanced. And it seems to be giving people an edge that they needed to overcome some of these challenges they're facing every day.
It's a new playbook that we've got to live by today, right? I was on the flight over to Florida, and I was on my own, and I was sat next to an old retired couple, and the whole family were going out. So they had their children and their grandchildren like at the back of the plane, and they're all excited and haven't been to Disney World in like 15 years, right? And we're chatting, and they were chatty, so we spoke most of the flight. And the lady was saying, oh, wow, I've got a fatty liver, and the doctor doesn't know why, and I don't drink and I don't smoke, and I just don't know. So I was trying to explain to her that, yes, that is really good. You don't drink and you don't smoke. But we are now overexposed to so much toxicity in the environment from the three main areas: chemicals, heavy metals, and electromagnetic fields. And even if we're exercising, we're eating well, or what we perceive to eat well, because I don't know, because they're a bit older, I might assume they think fat's bad. And, I don't know where they are on their knowledge of diet. But all to say, it's like that's what we're programmed to kind of focus on. If I exercise and I move more, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we're in a completely different game now, right? And, the rules have changed. And especially now with how they're really firing up the different frequencies, right? 4 to 5. Some people say it's on 6. We don't know, right? There's a lot going on. And actually, the traditional ways of staying healthy, I don't think apply anymore. I think we have to be proactive in health and there's many factors depending on your constitution, there's a genetic component, where you live. There's a lot that kind of plays out when you start to feel impacted by this stuff. But again, we're not living in the same environment. So technology like this is so important in terms of what you're bringing out, because not only does it protect with EMF mitigation, it actually charges you up as well. So I think it's very powerful.
That's the biggest thing to take away, is that what worked 5 or 10 years ago isn't going to work the same as it is today because of the environmental changes. They say that we've actually increased the electropollution. Take a guess. How much do you think it's increased since 1900? How many times perspective has it increased?
Since 1900s?
Yeah.
I mean, in the hundreds times more, maybe thousands. I don't know. I mean,
not even close. It's way more. It's like 1 quadrillion times more. It's one with 18 zeros behind it, times more electricity in the air and in the ground than it was in 1900. Logically makes sense that we are energetic beings. We have a nervous system that's electrical. That's going to affect us when it's that much artificial. And the issue is that it's man-made. It's a non-native form of electromagnetic fields. The natural electromagnetic fields are very balancing. They're very healing from the sunlight or from the Earth's magnetic field, from the biophotons, which are the weak emission infrared we get from plants or animals or from each other. Very healing. And they're non-polarizing, which means when they hit our cells, they don't create an electrical charge on the cell. They balance itself out. But this non-native EMF from any form of electricity, but what's common in our thinking now is from the Wi-Fi signals, Bluetooth, cell phones, cell towers, even power lines, it's polarizing. So when it hits our cells, it actually accumulates a charge on the cell, and that changes the electrical charges, the positive negative ion balance within the cell, which then causes the cell to have to respond to that. So the cell has a natural ability to adapt to the environment. What's happening now is because of the incredible electro density that we're dealing with, the cell can never get a break. There's no rest. There's no downtime. So it's always in this fight or flight state, always having to manage this environment. Therefore, it never rests. And we know when we sleep, that's supposed to be our deep rest, relax, rejuvenation time. We always need to have the balance. Like, we can fight for a long time, but we need to have the break to rest and recover and repair. And our cells don't get that, which leads to the stress, leads to the inflammation. And then that's what leads to the downstream brain fog, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. Also, a lot of doctors will say it's clinically proven that neurological issues caused by living in a high EMF environment, like Alzheimer's, dementia, MS, ALS, those things can be made worse because of all this. And so how do we give our bodies that rest? And that was the big question I had for my daughter, right? How do I give her body a break so that it can do what it was designed to do, which is to naturally heal itself or recover or continue to develop? And Gosh, how do you do that? Unless you can create a counter frequency or some type of area where you're free from the effects of all that electricity.
I get asked a lot, like, what's the worst toxin? Like, is it the chemicals? Is it the heavy metals? Is it the EMFs? And it's hard because you dive into each one, like, they're all really bad. Like, they're all really bad. But then I think about, well, I can proactively, get away from chemicals and heavy metals. It's easier. But with EMFs, it's really difficult because even if I have all the different, the different hygiene around my phone and my Wi-Fi, it's still, as you said, from 1900, it's just a billion X to whatever you said. So it's just like we're swimming in it, even though we do all these different things. We're still swimming in this electrosmog that we can't really control. I mean, yeah, you can move to a rural area, but as we know, and we'll talk about the work with the farmers you've been doing, you can't really escape it even when you go out to those areas anymore. But obviously, more likely in a city, you're just going to be bombarded. So it's like, I don't know. I kind of think it's the EMFs because we just can't avoid them. I mean, even if like you are, not having a phone or whatever next to you when you sleep, you've still got the plug sockets, and it's not just the phones, right? It's everything that is electrical.
Well, and if you think about too, your phone can connect to a cell tower 2 or 3 miles away, but the phone is broadcasting out 360 degrees. So it's a field, that one phone is producing a field that goes, say, 2 miles out. Well, every single phone you're around is doing the same thing. So it's how many layers of frequency from phones do you have in that 2 mile area? Plus you have the cell towers transmitting back in. So it's really hard to avoid it. And it is interesting because a lot of the disease we've seen have climbed at the same time as electricity has increased, chemical in our food supplies have increased. It's hard to know, but when you think about fundamentally how the body operates and functions, we're electrical beings, we're light beings, and there is an aspect that we're changing that environment or the degree of how that, if we're affecting how the body communicates that way, it can't be ignored is the other thing. Like, okay, for food, I could maybe start growing my own food. I could try, I could go really deep into get my own greenhouse and try to grow 100% of my own food, but I can't do something similar with the electrification of the world and our environment. I can't get away from it, especially with all the satellite communication now. And people will say, well, those satellites are so far away. The reality is they are beaming communication down wirelessly. That's radiation. It is strong enough to hit that satellite dish and then convert into high-speed internet. That's enough to affect our plants. It's not so much how strong it is. It's the fact that it's the presence that causes the living system, the plants and the animals, the insects, the people, we have to respond to it. And that response is where we start to run into problems if we're not protected.
It's an interesting time that we live in, right? And I think with this sort of information, what I realized a long time ago, a lot of it is around what we're exposed to, the information we're exposed to that influences our beliefs. So I remember in my time years ago, when I was learning health and I was in the system working corporate, and I was like, oh my goodness, seed oils. So I learned this information. I'd go to like colleagues, be like, do you realize seed oils are X, Y, and they'd be like, oh, wow. And they're like, really interesting. And then they'll go back to their life. And if no one's talking about it, even though I heard this really bad thing, if everyone over here is eating normally, it's fine. And I think with this information, it can be a bit like, oh my goodness, like it's that bad. But then it's like, well, if I just put the TV on, they're not talking about it in 5G, you can download things really quick. So it's a lot of it is it's hard information to hit. But actually understanding the situation is very empowering because there are really good solutions today, right? And we have to be empowered and be proactive because honestly, I say this a lot, if you just live a normal life, you plug in, you watch morning news and you just plug into normal society, it's not if, it's when you're going to get sick. It is literally when. I cannot see, unless you've got super genes, honestly, it's that simple in my mind. So this is really empowering information. And also this technology I think is so unique. And I want to jump into, so we've set the scene, EMFs, bad, right? Things are getting worse. But here's the deal. There's a lot of EMF products out there that talk about the benefits. And The understanding that I have good understanding in all areas of toxins, but I'm not like super deep in the areas. But when it comes to EMFs, I know a lot of these EMF technologies, the kind of the gist of how they approach it is you're a radio and you pick up radio signals. So rather than picking up the 5G signal, why don't you pick up a scalar signal? So you're not blocking it, you're just kind of ignoring it. So there's a lot of different technologies out there. They're doing different things. What is it about your technology in particular? Because as I said, you kind of position it as EMF mitigation, but it does this kind of regeneration thing, which for me, that was the value that I've received. Because I'm like, oh, wow, I'm feeling a lot like just different. And we'll talk about that. So compared to the standard products out there in the market, how does your product differ in terms of the technology and what it does?
We are really focused on the photonics of life, the light. How do we amplify natural light? And that natural light could be from the sun, it could be from our bodies. How do we amplify and so both improve the quality and the quantity of light in and around you? And that to me is the biggest difference, because now that we can manipulate the surface of these metals using a process called plasmonics. Physics allows us to change the surface of the metal. We see it in diabetic needles. We see it with super fast computer chips. We see it with satellites. And when they open up their panels to collect solar photons for their energy, they plasmonically alter those panels, enhance the amount of energy they get from that solar photon. So they're manipulating the metal. It might be a gold film, but it's actually an altered version of that gold film to make it work better with that light, make it more efficient. And that's what we're actually baking in and we're using with these plates. So we're actually taking the natural light and amplifying the quality and the quantity of those natural photons. When those photons interact with your body, it passes enough information and energy to, say, your electrons to then give them the proper spin to then go and communicate to the rest of the body, the cells and the mitochondria, what they should be doing. So it's about improving the quality of the information exchange as well as the energy or the spin of the cells that your body is being affected by. So when we look at it compared to like other products that maybe you have some products that get plugged in and produce a counter frequency, and they're kind of like a noise canceling headphone in that sense. You still have the white noise in the background, but now you have an electronically produced counter frequency that mutes the effect of the background noise on your eardrum. A lot of companies will produce those types of devices too for the cells and say, well, hey, we're mitigating the effects of EMF by putting a counter frequency in. The challenge I have with that approach long-term, it could have some short-term benefits, but long-term, we're using electricity again. And electricity is what is the major villain here. Electricity, if you take like an oxygen molecule, to have it be stable, it has 8 electrons, it has 6 in the outer shell. This is thinking of the classical view of a oxygen molecule. Of course, there's other ones. You could have an electron cloud. I don't want to get into all that. But just for the example of our conversation, if you have 6 on the outer shell, they all want to be equal distance from each other. It's kind of like coming around this microphone. They just want to be balanced. But when you get a strong positive electrical field come through, it polarizes that oxygen molecule for a second. And that means it's not available. That'll cause it to spin up in energy or down in energy. And for that second, when it might be needed to make a chemical reaction, say with carbon to make CO2, it's not readily available for that. And then that creates stress. When we use our photonics devices to mitigate that effect, we're creating a field of resonance that is energetic, that's from the natural light, that actually allows that oxygen molecule to remain balanced. And the positive ion field is now no longer strong enough to cause that disruption. And that's why you'll feel more energy. And we've had this tested by multiple groups. You'll feel more energy. In fact, even by dark field microscopy, where you're looking at the cells and it's illuminated in the back and you see the light emission, like the aura from each cell, dramatic change from before and after with how much light is being emitted from that cell. And that's a direct connection to the health of that cell. The healthier a cell is, the brighter it shines. And so we're helping this shine brighter. It's at a higher quality of energy, which means it's not going to get knocked out of balance by all the electricity in the area. If you're just using a counter frequency, you don't get that same effect long term. And then you don't get the rejuvenation, because as those cells, what is it with your kidney, or a kidney, I think you get a new kidney, say every 4 to 6 months, it replaces itself. And same with the liver, right? It's actively replacing itself. So if you're in this high quality zone of health where your cells are bright and vibrant, when they regenerate, they're going to regenerate. They'll be stronger. There'll be that epigenetic benefit that we get now with each succeeding generation of cells, where they become stronger and healthier. If you're just using counter frequencies, I don't think you get that, as well as if you're just using copper or some other type of maybe embedded frequency where it's a specific 810 nanometer or 520 nanometer wavelength. I think you miss out on the complexity of the natural light that our plates get to amplify because of the approach we've taken.
So essentially, it regenerates the body to a certain degree. And just so I'm very clear, looping that into the EMF mitigation, is it because you're amping up the kind of energetics of the cell that protects you from the EMFs? Is that how it works?
Yeah, we're creating a stronger resonance, stronger photonic resonant field in the body, which makes it more resilient against the EMF and other toxins as well. Like, right? I mean, you're going to have a higher resilience, and we can talk about that with like farmers. We see it with their animals and their crops. Their crops are more pest resistant. They're more drought resistant because they are using, they're just, there's more vitality, more life force in them.
Well, let's jump into that. So you do a lot of work with farmers, and set the scene for us, because again, because of the changes to our society and the technologies we've introduced, farmers basically found themselves with more problems. So jump into what those problems are, and then implementing your technology and what the results have been. And I think this is really important, because there's no placebo with cows, right? They can't fake it. It's the same with babies, right? So, if you give a baby a homeopathic, right, which you've given our son occasionally, he can't fake it. It is what it is. So yeah, jump into that in terms of your work with the farmers.
Yeah, this has been super rewarding, because one of the things that we want to do is help people live healthier and more vibrant lives. And one of the best ways to do that is to help with the food supply. And when we started getting calls from these dairy farmers in 2019 and 2020, basically the same problem across the country. Didn't matter where they were all having the same problem. Their cows weren't going into heat. They weren't getting pregnant. The fertility issues were dropping. And on a lot of these family farms, smaller scale farms, their next calf is the future income, the future milk producer for them. And so this was putting a lot of farms at risk. And they were really struggling because a lot of these farms were rural. Maybe you couldn't even see a cell tower, the power lines. And so for them to think that they had an EMF problem was really foreign. They couldn't really connect the dots. But at the same time, we started to have Starlink and other satellite communication systems being put out there right around 2019 and 2020. So the environment was changing. The atmosphere was changing. And that's where these cows live. So they're calling me saying, hey, I'm having fertility issues. I'm having production issues. The milk is starting to change its taste. It's less creamy, less quality. What can we do? And I said, well, we know that EMF affects fertility. There are so many studies that show, in fact, there's one from 2018 that shows with the NIH, and then there was an Italian group, the Ramizzi Institute, that showed that male fertility was affected, and they had cancer in their rats as well. So we know that fertility is affected by EMF in people and in animals. And I said, look, let's get our geofield conditioner on your farm and let's just watch what happens. We have a 90-day return policy on those. So 90 days, risk-free, we can try that. It was incredible. All these farmers had a complete turnaround within a month and a half. All their cows started going back into heat. They all got pregnant on the first round they went through. And they called me up and say, I think we saved the farm. And downstream from that, then they started to see their pastures had more chlorophyll. They were more nutrient dense. They had species forming in those pastures that they hadn't had in years. So they could tell their soil was healthier. And that was leading to a better production, better product at the end. Their milk was better. In fact, one farmer called me and said he had customers calling him saying, man, what did you change? What's different? Because this milk is creamier, it's thicker, it's just better, And so real world experience, real life experience, and pretty fast change as well.
Yeah, for sure. And here's the thing, farmers, they know their cows, they know their farms, they know when things like start to go good or bad. And just to see all of those changes so quickly is just fascinating.
We were actually talking at a conference in, I think it was October of 2 years ago. And I talked about the issues of EMF and how it affects farms. And this farmer came up, or I actually didn't know who she was. She just came up with her checkbook and said, I want that right now. I'm going to write you a check. I was like, well, they're not cheap. Are you sure? Like, tell me about your farm. It says, no, I have a 4,000 cow dairy, and we are converting it from a traditional, conventional farm into organic, grass-fed, because my mom, and this is how it happened. Her mom went through cancer, and she went alternative, did a natural approach, overcame the cancer, totally healed from that. And one of the big things was that she was drinking raw milk. And they realized that the milk they were producing from their dairy, they couldn't drink it raw. Like, it wouldn't work. They needed to change the way they produced it. So they were converting their dairy over, and they knew that EMFs were a big issue. So we brought it in there, and the neat thing is this dairy, women are working in milking parlor. It just is a great feel, great energy on this dairy. And they saw their milk increase by 15%. All the stress on their cows came down, fertility improved. I mean, it happens whether you have a dairy with 30 cows or with 4,000, which tells you that we're dealing with a universal problem. And if it works well for the farms, and we have homeowners who are buying those same units because they want to benefit their neighborhood. It's not, these same products work great in the home because it is an environmental issue that we're dealing with. It's not a specific issue of what's happening in England isn't going to work here in Florida or Washington State. It's a global issue that we're dealing with, and we're getting to solve.
Well, listen, they started throwing the towers up when we were all locked indoors, so it's a global problem now, especially in the more developed countries. The UK, I mean, they're on every street corner now, and I saw it in Florida when I was there. It's a very common thing nowadays that we have to deal with. So I want to jump into the different products, because you've got different types. We're both wearing these pendants, and that's what I bought from you guys back in October. Before we jump into that, my question is, you have home units that obviously have a wider kind of range. What I'm curious to know is, obviously it can protect a certain kind of radius of area. Is it stronger protection the closer to the unit you are? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because this is a very important difference between our products and a lot of other products as well. So these plates have an active side. So on the pendant, the active side is this smooth side that you have towards your body. On the home units, this is the 5-inch light tower. It has an active side too. By itself, it acts like a very coherent beam of light, like a flashlight or a laser beam, where it's very directional. So wherever I face this, there is a 5-inch square beam of light going off in a direction. And I did have brain injury a few years ago. So if I wanted to treat that brain injury or support it, we don't cure, treat, or anything like that, but we can support the body. And then I can just hold it up like this. And I actually have a mirror that you can take on this side. And believe it or not, now you can set it up. You can amplify it because we're using light. So the mirror will actually amplify the effect of these plates by 4 times. So you could set it up, say in the evening, you're reading a book or something, you could put the mirror on one side. And we had this in the conference in Orlando, where we had a chair, we had a table on this side, on the left side, and the large plates on the right side. And you can create a spot where you're getting this photonic light therapy. So you could do that. So the point is that by itself, it's very directional. I can harmonize my computer screen. I can harmonize my smartphone. I've got a phone I can take, and I can harmonize the phone like this.
Just not to go too off piece, but I think that's an important, when you say harmonize the phone, what does that, not to take you off track here, but that's an important thing, because people are like, harmonize the phone? What does that mean? Like, phone's got EMF on it. So if you were to shine the plate onto the phone, you say harmonize, what does that actually mean? What does that do?
Yeah, I had a gentleman who purchased some units, and then he actually shared a lot about his perspective, because he's been testing EMF products for the last 15 years. He's an expert in it. He has a bioresonance device from Germany that he measures what harmonizing is and how these devices harmonize things. And what he says is that to harmonize something is the opposite of what would create stress. So if you think about dis-ease, right? When we're sick, we have a dis-ease. We're not balanced. And so we're in a stressed state. Dis-ease comes from disharmony. And so the ultimate thing in nature, we always want to be harmonized. We want to be balanced. And that's basically what our bodies are always operating for, that scientific word called homeostasis, which is balance. So what he found was that our products were the only ones he had studied in the last 15 years that create a complete harmonization of the body. So our cells were more harmonized. Our DNA was harmonized. Also, our organs and our glands, our nervous system. When it's harmonized, there's a concept of being in balance, left-right balance. Acupuncture world talks a lot about that. You want to remove blockages, create the balance. Same with detoxing. You're going to want that to be that way. So when we think of harmonization, you could also say it's balanced. That's kind of how we think about it. And it means it's also naturally or biologically either beneficial or neutral.
So if you harmonized your phone, how long would it be harmonized for?
Yeah, it'll be harmonized about a week to 2 weeks, depending on how you use it and how often you plug it in. When you plug it in, you get that alternating current back into the phone that will knock it out of the harmony into disharmony again. And then that creates the stress on your body. So you've got a couple weeks of living good. And, a lot of people will just recommend every Monday morning, just go around and treat your Wi-Fi router. If you still have Wi-Fi, treat your phones, your TVs, things like that. So coming full circle to your question, when we take a stand, it has a scalar technology in it. Now, when I put this device on the stand like that and put it in there, the scalar device that's in the base of this interacts with the plate to broadcast the beam of light out to cover the whole house. So the smaller light tower will do about 600 to 800 square feet. So think of it as a bedroom or a den. Whereas this 5-inch light tower will expand that field to cover 1.5 acres. And then the larger light tower, the 7-inch, will cover about 3.5 acres. So we're taking this beam of light and turning it from a laser beam, and we're turning it into a floodlight with that stand. This is what we put on farmers. This is the GeoField device. It's quite a bit bigger. You can feel it's a heavier. It's about 12 pounds, but it'll have 4 stacks of those plates in there. And that by itself produces that broad field that'll cover, protect your home, your neighborhood, or almost any size farm.
One quick ask. If you're loving this episode, share it on your social media so people can take the next steps towards bettering their health. Also, if you're ready to take back control of your health, to feel that vibrant, youthful energy again, then send me a DM saying detox on Instagram and let's talk. Now let's get back to the show. And obviously you have the pendants, which is what you've got on, what I've got on. So tell me about the coverage for that. So I think that it's a great entry level kind of product into your ecosystem of what you guys offer. Hence what I bought it myself. And it sits on your chest, right? Just around your thymus area, as you said. So what's the coverage? Does that protect your whole body wearing that? I mean, what does the pendant do?
We say it protects you from the inside out. So as the light is coming off this active side back into your body, it's harmonizing your body, creating that resonant field of we call photonics throughout the body. And so you're protected from the inside out. Your biofield we've measured this too. We all have a field around us. Your biofield becomes more coherent and becomes larger. So there is a sense that people who are in your biofield would benefit from that, but it's more a very indirect way. These are really wearable, they're personal devices versus creating a bubble around you. Again, because we're using photonics, we're using a beam of light versus a frequency generator that creates a 360 degree field. It's just a different way that our plates work.
Would you like to hear what I've noticed in myself?
I would love to hear that. I love these stories. Yes.
So I've got a young son. He's 18 months, and we've now cracked the code of getting him to sleep throughout the night. So we've just cracked the code. However, up until that point, we had very much not cracked the code, sometimes 4 times a night. And, before the arrival of our son, very big on sleep. I dialed everything in. I'm a detox coach. I tick all the boxes in terms of EMF, mitigation, sleep, nutrition, all the stuff. So I know that when you're getting interrupted sleep, it's going to have an impact. And what I was noticing was, even though I was keeping everything dialed in, because of the consistent interrupted sleep, I could see I was run down and prone to maybe picking up a little sore throat. I could just tell it. Then started wearing the pendant. And what I noticed was something would come and it would go very quickly. As in, normally you think, oh no, something's coming. And then it would you get it's coming, and then it would just disappear. And I was like, that's interesting. That's really interesting. So that's one thing. Energy has been, in the gym has been really interesting. Just going in and just having really good extra pump. Because you kind of think, oh yeah, it's just, feel good today. And then I was consistently feeling good. The last thing, which is really fascinating, is with my hair. So I turned 40 in June last year, so now entered my 40s. And I was going grey in my kind of early mid-30s when I was going through my health issues, and I detoxed and I reversed it. And I was like, great. So then it's been quite consistent. But then the last couple of years, the greys have started creeping in. And because my hairstyle, it's really exposed. You can see the grey. And that's pretty much reversed again. So again, I'm just like, that's bananas. And I'm going to my wife, can you see? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I was showing her pictures of 3 months ago. Look at that. And she's like, oh yeah, it looks different. Here's the thing, just a caveat. I do a lot of stuff, right? I'm very health focused. I'm always proactively detoxing. I do a lot of stuff. So I'm not saying to everyone there's a magic bullet with health. We all know that's not the case. However, adding this into all the other things I've done, I've noticed there's a bit more energy. My hair's starting to fill out and the greys are going. So that's what my intuition's saying I've noticed since I've been wearing the product. So very powerful.
You bring up an interesting point, Adam, because I have felt that there are people who are on the healthier side where they're biohackers or they're really been intentional about their health for years, right? This is actually, it's like taking them to a level that what they just couldn't reach. It was also almost an elusive point that they were trying to get to. They knew their body could get to it. They've tried lots of different things. They've been consistent with their health, but it's been elusive. And I think that the EMF holds us back just a little bit. And this gives us the energy to get over that hurdle to that next elusive state. So that's interesting.
It's very subtle. And again, I'm really connected to intuition and that's from cleansing. It's like so many people through the process and all of a sudden these 6 senses switch back on. So I'm really dialed into my intuition, and my intuition is saying, don't take this off. That's what's coming through. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll keep it on. So yeah, very, very subtle, but it's very much sold in technology and very wow. And I love it. I just love how how grand intervention happens. I'd been at the conference 3 days. I'd seen you guys. I was planning to go over. I get caught in the conversation with that lady. Just her energy sells it in. I'm like, listen, we've spoke for 30 minutes. I like your energy. I'm going to go buy it. Why not? And we briefly spoke for 2 minutes, and I was like, hey, how you doing? And then that was that, and I went on my merry way.
That's awesome. And so how long ago was that? Just to give people a perspective of what they could somewhat expect. Because people ask me all the time, hey, how quick will I notice something? What was it for you?
So the event was in end of October. I didn't put it on until I got home. So, let's say conservatively, beginning of November, I put it on. It's kind of subtle because you just crack on with your life and all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's not an instant, oh, I feel great. It's like, it's slowly built over time, right? It wasn't an instant, boom. It was, oh, okay, I'm just feeling everything's just improving slowly and what I can't put my finger on it. Oh, could it be I'm wearing this thing? Again, it's very similar to detox. I say, listen, just get your head down and just do it. And then you'll just notice things as you go through. I just started seeing things subtly over time to a point where I'm like, okay, now it's in my awareness now. For me, it's subtly creeped in where, I'm not getting sick and I'm not sleeping. I'm hardly sleeping. Honestly, you wouldn't believe some of the nights I had awake 5 times. And it was like, I cannot survive. And then I've got to work the whole day because I'm, here serving people. And then going to the gym that day and still feeling like I've still got energy. This is interesting, Things like that. You notice these things. And then you're thinking, what have I done? What have I done? And then, so then eventually over time, your brain starts to figure out, oh, actually, I'm not doing anything different. Maybe it's this. So it's that. It's like how the brain computes. And that's how I computed it over time. Because I literally didn't think about it. I just put it on and then just cracked on. And then probably, a month in, I'm like, I think it's the necklace. I'm going to keep it on. So that was my experience.
That's and so now we're just a couple months. It's just been two and a half months. So
it's probably been 2.5 months, since the conference. So I'm really impressed with this technology, and as I said, it's an EMF mitigation, but I think it's so much more because it's charging you up. I was listening to some of your content, in preparation for this conversation, and you were talking about, I think it was your eyesight. Tell us about that. Tell us about that story. That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, this is something I didn't even expect or connect the dots for a while. Probably I just didn't have time to go to the eye doctor often enough. But ever since I was a teenager, I needed corrective lenses. My eyes weren't awful, but I definitely needed corrective lenses to see distance, to drive. If I didn't wear my glasses while I was driving a car, over time, my eyes would get really tired and make me tired. Sometimes I had to pull over and take a nap and rest. I mean, it was really bad. But yeah, I couldn't do anything without my glasses for most of my life. So I started wearing this necklace, this pendant, had to have been almost 12 years ago now. And let's see, I didn't really go to the doctor a whole lot. My prescription hadn't been changing, so I didn't really feel like I needed to go to him too much. But I finally started going again. I think I went and saw an eye doctor 3 years ago. So that must have been 8 or so years after I was wearing this. And, we eat healthy. We do our best to live healthy lives. We're not perfect. We have a large family. We have 7 children. Like I said, we had a critically ill child who did pass away in that time. So just a lot of stressful events. And it's hard to do everything as well as you want to. So I think pretty average, pretty normal lifestyle and family. But one thing I was very consistent with is wearing this, and we've had our conditioner in the home for that long as well. And I went to the doctor and he said, your eyes are actually 20/20. You have perfect vision. You don't need corrective lenses except for astigmatism in your left eye. And I thought, well, that's crazy that would happen. And it made me remember that we did have some people share like eye exams they had when they had glaucomas before and after, and the glaucoma improved. One lady, she actually had a genetic disorder where her eyes were bleeding and she was losing her eyesight just through this genetic condition. And there was really nothing she could do. She could barely read the large E on the wall, when you do your eye exam. So she was losing her vision. So what she did is she got 2 of the pocket pendants. She put them inside of ski goggles. And I made this up for her. So I made sure they're the right ski goggles. But basically she could wear those. And she wore those for about an hour and a half to 2 hours every night before bed, kind of in that time of meditation as she's calming down. And then she would wear them. She'd flip the goggles behind and have them on behind her head during the day when she was working on a computer. In 30 days, from when she got that to when she went to her eye doctor, her vision actually started to show a slight improvement. I mean, she was in tears. It was the first time she'd had an improvement in years. Totally unexpected. Her doctor didn't really know what to think of other than just tell her, keep doing whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I have this book called Body Electric behind me, Robert Becker. If anybody's interested, that's a book worth reading because it talks about the fact that our body does have the capability of regeneration, but it requires an electrical current that's super microscopic, it's super tiny electric current, and it also requires a very quiet environment, meaning no noise. And this EMF, this electricity disrupts that big time. But he was doing work with the military to figure out how to help soldiers regenerate limbs, and he kind of cracked the code on it. What I think is happening is when we can create this photonic resonance within the body that creates the harmonization, that quietness, it's allowing the body cells to create that leap, that microcurrent leap to regenerate in some capacity. I don't think I can regenerate my limbs, but we are seeing, one story real quick, he was a guitar player. He was working with a table saw and he went his finger right down the middle. He cut his finger right down the middle of the finger, right to the second joint on his left hand. So right where he was playing. Thought he'd never play guitar again. But he went and got it repaired, got surgery, and then he put one of the 4-inch light towers on there like a splint and wore it that way for 3 months. And he could tell right away he was starting to get tingling in his finger. And he was like, I think it's helping. I think it's going to heal this. We believe it does support faster recovery and healing. But what he found is after 3 months, he actually could move his finger. And after 5 months, he had full feeling and full movement, and he was able to be playing guitar. So it was just a wild story, totally unexpected, blew the doctors away. But I think it was because he was so consistent with the use of those plates to create that environment that was really conducive to that regeneration. So we do have stories like that, and it's really special to be able to be a part of that and to serve people that way.
Yeah, they're magical stories. And honestly, I'm just really glad I ended up just on a whim buying your products. Because honestly, I literally on a whim, I was just like rolling in the good energy. I love conferences because I just love being submerged in just random conferences. I love it. And I was in this conversation like, yeah, I'm gonna buy this. Why not? You're like in this shopping spree energy. Yeah, I'll grab that. And I'm really glad I did. And it's been fantastic to connect with you, Dan, because it's honestly I've seen a lot of EMF protection products over the years, and this is that and more. So I really recommend you guys and what you're doing. And I know we just got an affiliate code set up, so I'll put that in the show notes. I would highly recommend, if you're inspired from this conversation, just buy the pendant and just see how you get on. Like that's very, very affordable product, and just see how you get on. And that, I literally, you've heard my testimony. So yeah, I'm really impressed with what you guys do.
Thanks, Adam. The lady you spoke to, this is Dr. Marlene Siegel, who's a holistic vet, and she is encouraging all her pet owners to also put these on their dogs and cats, any of their pets. Our fur babies are just as affected, if not more so, from the EMF. And so it's not just people.
Yeah, for sure. It's everything living, right? Plants, animals, it's the whole spectrum, for sure. Dan, this has been great. Where can our listeners best connect with you and Essential Energies?
I appreciate it, Adam. Yeah, our website is essentialenergy.us. That's essentialenergy.us. You can go there to find our social handles. We're on Instagram, YouTube. YouTube is probably one of the better places to go. We have a lot of long form content, but also the reels that are helpful. But you can find us on most anywhere out there. But essentialenergy.us is the best website to go to.
Amazing. We'll put that in the show notes for the listeners. Final question from me. What 3 pieces of advice would you give our listeners to help them achieve their ideal day?
The first thing for me is really hone in on your relationships, making sure you are investing in others, you're serving others. And then 2, it's all about energy and light and natural light. Find your way to that source of natural light, whether it's being out in the sunlight as much as you can, getting grounded on the soil, getting out of the city into the just nature and just spending time observing nature, I think is powerful. And then the third one is making sure you've got a spiritual connection. For me, those 3, spiritual connection, connect with God, find him, and know that like the overarching law of love is where we learn, we share. The more I do that in my day, any day I have, the better that day is, the more that I've shared with others. So those would be my 3 pieces of advice.
Amen, brother. I'm with you on that one. Dan Stachofsky, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Adam.
And for more after the show, make sure you head over to youridealday.com where you can find out more information. Please support the show by heading to Apple Podcasts to leave a review and to let everybody know that the show is awesome. Or you can take a screen grab, post it on your Instagram stories, or just tell a friend about the podcast to get the word out there. I'd appreciate that so much. Take care, and thanks for tuning in.